Hello everyone, warm welcome to Testbook Super Coaching. मेरा नाम है माधव अरोड़ा. I welcome you all in a splendid and a very important session for RBI Grade B as well as SEBI examination. Now the question is, so what we are going to learn in this session? What is the benefit of this particular session? First of all, before I start the discussion, specifically for this session, I would like to inform everyone that if we talk about RBI Grade B or SEBI examination, in both these exams, finance is going to play a really very important role. Not only in phase 1, but also in phase 2 and most importantly in interview. We know this very well that majority current affair questions will be asked obviously from finance. We know this very well that in the interview, majority questions will be asked from the financial world, and along with that in the phase 2 and phase 1 direct questions are going to be asked for sure because it is the part of your curriculum. Now, we at Testbook Super Coaching, we have started with a series, and this series is named as Basics of Finance. And in this particular series, I'm trying my level best to discuss each and every important topic, each and every important concept of finance in much detail for all those candidates who are preparing for 2025. What is the benefit of these sessions? The benefit of these sessions is once you are clear with the basics, you are clear with the concepts, you can easily understand the current affairs and analyze the situation so that you can write a good descriptive answer as well as you can answer the MCQ questions and you can tackle the interviewer's question pretty easily. So let's get started without any further delay. Today's topic of discussion is All India Financial Institutes. These All India Financial Institutes, they are also termed as development banks. They are also termed as development institutes. So before we start the discussion that what are these institutes and all, let's talk about the basic part, from where these institutes they have origin into the country. What was the aspect behind their origin? Let's start and let's try to discuss that part. Please pay attention on the screen. Guys, we know this very well that RBI was set up in 1935. I hope you are clear. I hope you are aware of this point that RBI started its operation on 1st April 1935 and RBI operates under its own act, which is RBI Act 1934. When RBI was set up, from day one, it was set up as the central bank of the country. Now, for those who don't know that what is a central bank, which I have already discussed in my previous sessions, so I would say in that particular case, I would say that when RBI was set up, it was set up as a central bank, and its main objective, or I would say main role, was to manage the economy in terms of monetary and financial stability, maintain the forex reserves as well as printing and issuing of the currency. But we know this very well that when RBI was set up, at that time RBI was what? Sir, RBI was basically a private bank. Later on, this private bank was nationalized on 1st of January 1949. And since 1st of January 1949, RBI is purely owned by government. RBI is purely owned by government. Now, RBI was the first bank, please pay attention, RBI was the first bank owned by the government. Which government I'm talking about? Indian government after independence. So the first bank which was owned by government was RBI, and RBI is not a commercial bank. That means RBI is not working to earn profit. RBI is not providing public dealing. That means it is not accepting deposits from the public. It is not providing loan to the public. Later on, the first commercial bank which was owned by government, or I would say Imperial Bank of India, which was owned by British Crown majorly, was overtaken by Government of India and it was renamed as State Bank of India. But it was a commercial bank. So Whole and sole, RBI was responsible to perform all the banking operations or to fulfill all the banking requirements of the government. So the moment India got independence, and after India got independence, government was trying, or government is still trying its level best to develop the nation, to promote the nation. There was a requirement of development, and in order to develop the nation, obviously there is a requirement of distribution of development funds or to carry out development activities. So in order to carry out development activities, RBI was involved in the initial days. So RBI was carrying out development activities for the industrial sector so that country can develop its industrial sector. RBI was responsible to carry out the development activities for rural sector, or I would say for agriculture sector. Then RBI was responsible to carry out the development activities to promote the export sector of the country or to promote the foreign trade of the nation. But eventually RBI realized that it is impossible for a single organization to perform all these operations, and in order to overcome the issues which were prevailing with RBI proposed to set up specific banks which will be responsible for the same purpose. So the first bank which was proposed was IDBI, that is Industrial Development Bank of India. As the name suggests, this bank was set up as a development bank, and this bank was responsible only and only for the development of industrial sector. Secondly, the proposal was to set up a bank which will be responsible for the development or to carry out the development activities or to assist the government to perform its development activities for the agriculture sector as well as rural sector. And then we have the EXIM bank. So all these banks which I just mentioned on the screen, they were set up by RBI or government, because RBI is an entity of government. So these banks, they were set up, and they were set up with the sole motive to carry out the development activities, to distribute the development funds on the behalf of the government in the specific sectors. Then there was a requirement to set up an organization which can help to develop the housing sector in the country so that public in the nation can own their own houses. So NHB was set up, that is National Housing Bank, and later on there were many developments. But what I'm trying to make you understand is that is RBI was the reason because of which these development banks were set up. And if someone asks you what is a development bank, so development bank is an organization which is involved in development activities as well as distribution of development funds. For an instance, if I take a very simple example with you, let's suppose government of India has started a scheme in which government is saying that if you will be setting up an industry, then we will be providing you with credit benefits. Credit benefit means, for example, if you are setting up an industry in the given sector and you are borrowing a loan, out of your loan which you have borrowed, government will be paying certain amount of interest as a subsidy. So that subsidy will be paid either to the industry or directly to the bank from which you have borrowed the funds by the government. But who is going to do that? Government is not going to do that on the behalf of government. These banks, these organizations, these authorities are going to perform those operations. So that is basically the role of the development banks which are operating in the country. Now, I don't know, but I was expecting a question in the comment section. Sir, IDBI is a development bank. IDBI is a development bank. Sir, are you sure? Sir, are you sure? My answer would be yes, I'm sure. When IDBI was set up, it was a development bank. Sir, right now, can I say that IDBI is a development bank? No, sir. IDBI is no more a development bank. It's a commercial bank now. And for that reason, it is now no more government owned. It is owned by the government entities, that is LIC. So we can even say that it is now a private commercial bank or non-government owned commercial bank. तो सर ऐसा क्या हुआ कि एक डेवलपमेंट बैंक गवर्नमेंट ओनरशिप ही खत्म हो गई? व्हाट इज द एंटायर स्टोरी बिहाइंड? एनीवन इज अवेयर ऑफ द स्टोरी गाइस? एनीवन आउट देयर हु इज लिसनिंग टू मी इज अवेयर ऑफ द स्टोरी? Are you aware of this story? Say yes or no. And are you willing to hear the story? Are you willing to hear the story? Should I share the story with you? Should I share the story with you? Please reply in the comment section, everyone. I don't know why you all do not reply in the comment section. If you will not reply, you are not going to enjoy the things in a better manner. So if you want to enjoy the things in a better manner, you need, or I would request you to please reply in the comment section. I request you to interact with me so that I can understand you, you can understand me, and we can have a better conversation. We can have a better, I would say, connection with each other. Shall I move ahead? Shall I discuss with you? Okay. So if I start my discussion related to IDBI, I'll start my discussion for IDBI from 1930s. I'm talking about the Second World War, or even after the Second World War. You must be aware. You must be aware of the Great Depression. I'm not sure that whether you are aware of the Great Depression or not. So let's start our discussion. So when I say when and how RBI was set up, I cannot see any comment of you all, but I would love to hear from you all in the comment section. So development banks, they basically emerged after the Second World War and the Great Depression in the 1930s. So the demand for reconstruction funds was there, where the government, the authorities, the countries, they require funds so that they can reconstruct the areas, they can reconstruct themselves, they can reconstruct their economy after the Great World War. Now, India got independence in 1947, and India had a fairly developed banking system at the time of independence. I can say that, yes, India had a fairly developed banking sector or banking system when we got independence. The answer is quite obvious, because in India the banking sector is not new. It's a quite old scenario, it's a quite old system which is prevailing. Later on, central bank was set up, and then due to the efforts of central bank, I would say development banks were set up. And I would say that along with the commercial banks, specialized development financial institutes were introduced by RBI in the economy, and the first one which was introduced was IDBI. So I'll start my discussion with IDBI today. If I say what is IDBI, then I would say IDBI stands for Industrial Development Bank of India. And Industrial Development Bank of India was set up in 1964 with its headquarter in Mumbai. And IDBI was set up under its own act, or I would say under the Act of Parliament, as a wholly owned subsidiary of RBI. So IDBI was set up under the Act of Parliament. We can also say that as IDBI Act, and it was set up, as I mentioned earlier, as subsidiary. Subsidiary means wholly owned subsidiary of RBI. What I mean with the term wholly owned means entirely owned, 100% shareholding of IDBI. 100% shareholding of IDBI was with RBI, and subsidiary basically means it will operate as per the RBI norms, as per the RBI operations. ठीक है जी? When IDBI was set up, it was very clear that it was operating as an industrial development bank. It was operating as an industrial development bank. And at that time, when this bank was set up, India was trying its level best to develop its industrial sector. And in order to develop its industrial sector, IDBI branches were set up all around the country. So everywhere at a very fast pace, IDBI branches were set up. But on the other side, so these development banks or these development financial institutes, they are not profit earning or they are not commercial banks. So with the setting up of these banks with n number of branches, it involved n number of expenditure as well. It involved n number of expenditure as well. So later on in 1976, ownership was transferred to the government. Ownership of IDBI, ownership was transferred to Government of India. So in 1976, Government of India became the owner of Industrial Development Bank of India, and the Union government was responsible for its ownership. After that, I would say it was made a principal financial institution for coordinating the activity of institutions engaged financing, promoting and developing the industry in India. So IDBI provided financial assistance both in rupees as well as foreign currency for the expansion, for the modernization of the industrial sector in the economy. In a wake of financial sector reforms in 1992, IDBI was provided indirect financial assistance by a way of refinancing of loan extended by state level financing institutions, banks and many more. So it was doing pretty well. So in 1976, it was owned by government, and later on, after the IDBI, shares were introduced to the public in 1995. In 1995, 25% of shareholding was issued to the public, obviously through IPO, and 75% shares are still with the government. 75% shares are still with the government, and IDBI was working as one of the important industrial sector bank of the economy. Now, IDBI, it played a very important role in the 1964 to 1991 in order to boost the industrial sector of the country, and some of the institutions were built with the support of IDBI. So the institutions which were built with the support of IDBI, then I would say institutions which were built with the support of IDBI, the most important SEBI, the most important is SEBI. Then we have SIDBI, which was set up as subsidiary of IDBI, Along with that, we have NSDL, then we have NESC and many more. Now, what happened later on? So then IDBI was converted from a development financial institute into a commercial bank. So a committee was formed by RBI, which recommended that IDBI should not only work as a development bank, IDBI should also operate as a commercial bank, and it can act as a bridge between development and commercial banks. So with the Industrial Development Bank Act 2003, IDBI attained the status of limited company, which is termed as IDBI Limited, and in September 2004, RBI incorporated IDBI as a scheduled bank. So remember that there was an amendment, that is Industrial Development Act 2003. IDBI was given the status of commercial bank, and since September 2004, IDBI was given the status of what? So it was given the status of commercial bank. So what is a commercial bank? The banks like SBI, banks like PNB, which are dealing with public, which are accepting your deposits, which are providing you loan in order to earn profit. Is it clear? So finally, So finally, IDBI was termed as a commercial bank. Later on, the ownership of IDBI was transferred from Government of India to LIC, and right now IDBI can be termed as a commercial bank which is owned by government entity but not by government directly. Now you must be worried. That sir, if IDBI is no more working as a development bank, then who is responsible for the development of industries? Then my answer would be, in the past, IDBI has set up its own subsidiary, that is Small Industrial Development Bank of India, in 1990. Later on, its ownership was transferred to the government, and right now we have one more organization, that is Mudra, Micro Unit Development and Refinance Agency, which was set up in 2015 under the Pradhan Mantri Mudra Yojana. So nowadays, Small Industrial Development Bank of India and Micro Unit Development and Refinance Agency, these are the two banks or agencies or organizations which are responsible to carry out or to perform the development functions, perform the industrial development functions on the behalf of, or I would say, which was earlier done by IDBI. Is it clear, everyone? So the first development bank which was set up in the country, from where the development banks were introduced in the country, was IDBI. But how IDBI changed over the period of time, I have given you the entire context. 1976, ownership was transferred to Government of India. Then in 1995, public issue, that means shares were issued to the public, and once the shares were issued to the public, it was termed as a bank with public ownership. RBI assisted the setting up of many institutes, which include SEBI, SIDBI, NSDL, NSE. IDBI, that is Industrial Development Act 2003, gave IDBI a commercial bank status, and later on the IDBI's commercial wing and the IDBI development wing were merged in 2005. So for a year almost, IDBI development wing was working separately, IDBI commercial wing was working separately, but in 2005 they were merged into one, and IDBI was operating more or majorly as a commercial bank. Later on in 2019, its ownership was transferred, and right now LIC is the I would say majority shareholder of Industrial Development Bank of India. So I would say this acquisition was done back in 2018, but it completed eventually in January 2019. So that is the reason I'm saying that since January 2019, this bank is owned by LIC. Is it clear now? Is it clear, everyone? So I hope the term IDBI is clear to you, how it's set up, how it started operating, and how it converted from development to commercial, and from government owned to privately owned or a government entity owned bank. No more it is termed as what? So no more it is termed as government owned bank. So IDBI was given a status of scheduled bank by RBI in 2004. Later on, the commercial wing and the development wing was merged into one and set up one single bank, that is known as IDBI. Is it clear, everyone? Is it clear? So IDBI has set up two organizations, SIDBI, Mudra, which are currently operating as in development authorities for the industrial sector. Along with that, we have NABARD, then we have NHB, and in the end, we have new one, that is NaBFID. So if you want to cover these institutes as well, you can join today with me on Testbook application. The link is given in the description below. You can join with me today at 9 p.m. today itself, after 20 minutes at 9 p.m. where I will be completing this topic regarding NABARD, NHB and NaBFID. Is it clear, everyone? Okay. One more thing, guys, if you have any doubt related to RBI, in the description below you have a Google form. You must fill that Google form in order to understand what is basically RBI, and if you have any doubt related to RBI, you can ask us on the Google form itself. If you want to clear this examination in the very first go, we have a RBI Grade B 2025 Lakshya batch. You can use the code that is MADHAV. The moment you will use this code Madhav, you will get maximum discount when you will be purchasing the Lakshya batch. Do enroll yourself in this batch right now in order to assure your selection for 2025. You can download the PDF of this session from the Telegram link. Just scan the code, land on my Telegram channel, and I will be sharing the PDF of today's session on my channel itself. So that will be all, guys. We'll catch you in the next session. Bye bye. Good luck. Hope you must have enjoyed the session and you must be waiting to understand NABARD, NHB, NaBFID in same depth, in same format, and you will be catching with me today at 9 p.m. in the masterclass that is on the Testbook application. Thank you so much. Good luck. God bless you all. Bye bye, guys. See you at 9 p.m. today on Testbook application in the masterclass where we will be completing this particular topic. Thank you.